Nancy Pelosi ought to be investigated. That was President Donald Trump's advice to, well, investigators.
You know, Nancy Pelosi became rich by having inside information. She made a fortune with her husband, and I think that's disgraceful. So in that sense, I'd like it, but I'd have to really see I study these things very carefully, and this just happened. So I'll take a look at it. But conceptually, I like it. And what I do think is Nancy Pelosi should be investigated, because she has the highest return of anybody practically in the history of Wall Street, save a few. How did that happen? It happened by she knows exactly what's going to happen, what's going to be announced. She buys stock, and then the stock goes up after the announcement's made. And she ought to be investigated.
Yeah. And President Donald Trump was saying, in theory, I'm for the Pelosi Act, which is a movement in the Senate to ban congressional stock trading, but he wants to take a look at it. He also thinks that Nancy Pelosi, of course, should be investigated, something I think a lot of people would contend with, because she has made multiple millions of dollars since becoming a congresswoman. And yes, she's done it through her husband, but we know where her husband gets his information. We know where she gets her information from being a member of Congress. Nancy Pelosi was asked about this on CNN, and while this is not actually technically information coming directly from the White House, it was just too good not to play.
Nancy Pelosi became rich.
Why do you have to read that? We're here to talk about the 60th anniversary of Medicaid. That's what I agreed to come to talk about.
Yeah, but I wanted
what that means in the election.
I wanted to give you a chance just to respond. He accused you of insider trading. What's your response to that?
That's ridiculous. In fact, I very much support the stop the trading of members of Congress. Not that I think anybody's doing anything wrong. If they are prosecuted and they go to jail. But because of the confidence it instills in the American people, don't worry about this. But I have no concern about the obvious investments that had been made over time. I'm not into it. My husband is, but it isn't anything to do with anything insider.
Yeah, and that is something that was moving forward until Senator Josh Hawley proposed an amendment to change the name and cut out some carve-outs that had been made in the previous issues, and President Donald Trump was not happy with those carve-outs. He took to Truth Social to write, "Why would one Republican Senator, Josh Hawley, from the great state of Missouri, join with all the Democrats to block a review sponsored by Senator Rick Scott and with the support of almost all other Republicans of Nancy Pelosi's stock trading over the last 25 years. The information was inappropriately released just minutes before the vote, very much like sabotage. The Democrats, because of our tremendous achievements and success, have been trying to target me for a long period of time, and they're using Josh Hawley, who I got elected twice, as a pawn to help them. I wonder why Hawley would pass a bill that Nancy Pelosi is in absolute love with. He is playing right into the dirty hands of the Democrats. It's a great bill for her and her husband, but so bad for our country. I don't think real Republicans want to see their president, who has had unprecedented success, targeted because of the whims of a second-tier senator named Josh Hawley." President Donald Trump saying, look, I'm all for the bill. I'm all for banning congressional stock trading. But the Democrats and their amendments and the add-ons that they want, supported by Josh Hawley, are just totally unacceptable and seem, once again, like they are targeting the president of the United States of America. We'll see how this one plays out. In the meantime, President Donald Trump's tariffs are taking off. He posted on Truth Social, "Tariffs are making America great and rich again. They were successfully used against the USA for decades, and coupled with really dumb, pathetic, and crooked politicians, we're having a devastating impact on the future and even the survival of our country. Now the tide has completely turned, and America has successfully countered this onslaught of tariffs used against it. 1 year ago, America was a dead country. Now it's the hottest country anywhere in the world. Congratulations to all." And this, of course, comes just moments after President Donald Trump announced he has a tariff deal, or a trade deal rather, with South Korea. Now, tomorrow, August 1st, is the deadline for all of these tariffs to go into effect, and South Korea apparently coming in right under the deadline. President Trump wrote, "I am pleased to announce that the United States of America has agreed to a full and complete trade deal with the Republic of Korea, South Korea. The deal that South Korea will give to the United States $350 billion for investments owned and controlled by the U.S. and selected by myself as president. Additionally, South Korea will purchase $100 billion of LNG, liquid natural gas, or other energy products, and further, South Korea has agreed to invest a large sum of money for their investment purposes. This sum will be announced within the next 2 weeks when the president of South Korea, Lee Jae-myung, comes to the White House for a bilateral meeting. I would also like to congratulate the new president on his electoral success. It is also agreed that South Korea will be completely open to trade with the United States, and they will accept American products, including cars and trucks and agriculture, etc. President Donald Trump and the White House issued this memorandum saying, basically, here's the deal. The reciprocal tariff and an automobile tariff will be set at 15%. They'll purchase 150 billion, and Korea will provide 350 billion to the U.S. to invest. This is furthering our trade agreements with some powerful partners, but also continuing to put the chokehold on Vladimir Putin and Russia when it comes to energy dominance, because every trade deal that Donald Trump has made in the past week has included energy. And the exportation of American energy, which means drill, baby, drill, will be continuing as a way for America to make a ton of cash. And in fact, Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, was on Fox News yesterday and reiterated that exact fact.
The magnet of the world is the U.S. consumer, right? You know, remember the saying, the customer is always right? U.S. customer is the greatest buyer in the world, and Donald Trump understands how to harness that customer and show that customer to everybody and say, if you want to play in our sandbox, you've been treating us badly for years, come on and play. And then the idea now is to get these countries who open their market. Number one, open their market. So now we can export for the first time, and that's going to grow our GDP 1%. Build factories here. That's going to grow our GDP 1%. And then these people invest. We now have $900 billion committed to build the pipelines in Alaska, to build nuclear and build power, and drill, baby, drill. This becomes the model. We're going to build ships in America. We're going to build semiconductors in America. We are going to finally take care of the core of America, and it's led by Donald Trump's trade policy.
And that is something that, of course, continues to dominate, and that is the trade and the tariffs and, of course, American energy production, which President Donald Trump is looking to bolster and bring back to greatness. And we're going to continue to see these trade deals as this trade deadline comes up here in just a few days. The South Korean trade deal is something that is truly exciting, and again comes at the last minute. South Korea realizing that President Donald Trump doesn't mess around, and Jameson Greer was on, I believe, Fox News to discuss that as well.
Korea, as you know well, has always been very challenging on trade for the United States. We've had an agreement with them in past years, but our trade deficit with Korea has continued to be extensive. However, President Trump has raised the natural leverage of the U.S. market to really obtain some significant concessions from the Koreans. The first part of this is really an investment and purchase deal where the Koreans are going to essentially provide the president and the government, the U.S. government, with the ability to invest $350 billion in important industries like shipbuilding, which is very critical for us. They're also going to increase their energy purchases to $100 billion over the next few years. And then there's the trade piece of this, too, where non-tariff barriers we've had on agriculture and industrial goods for years will be eliminated as we work with our Korean partners. I mean, this is exactly the sweet spot that President Trump is hitting with trade partner after trade partner, and he's done it tonight with South Korea.
Yeah, man, that is something that's going to continue as this deadline looms near. Any of the other countries that haven't yet stepped up, China, they're currently working on a deal with. Canada has no deal, and of course, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has now said that he's investigating or supportive of a Palestinian state in the Middle East, which of course would destroy any trade deal that Donald Trump tries to make with Canada. So there are some countries that are still lagging behind. President Donald Trump announced that he's going to be putting the thumb screws on India because India has been very unfair to us, even though they're one of our allies. They buy way too much energy from Russia and they tariff us out the wazoo. Donald Trump not at all happy with them. But overall, it is looking like the United States of America will be ready for a windfall here in the next few weeks. And tomorrow is August 1st, the tariff deadline, where Donald Trump says billions of dollars will be pouring into our country, leading Scott Bessent to say anybody out there who has some money, there's only one place you should be putting it.
You've been described as a global macro veteran and you run a hedge fund. In this moment, where would you put your money if you were still running one?
United States of America.
Yeah, put the money in the U.S. because everything is looking up. In a couple of other stories, President Donald Trump continues to attack Jerome Powell because with all of this great information coming through, with all the great trade deals that we're seeing, with all of the tariff revenue, with all of the oil revenue that we're going to be getting and liquid natural gas, President Donald Trump is still furious that Jerome Powell, for no good reason, really, has refused to lower the interest rate, which would be a boost to the housing market. Jerome Too Late Powell has done it again, President Donald Trump wrote on Truth Social. He is too late and actually too angry, too stupid, and too political to have the job of Fed chair. He is costing our country trillions of dollars. In addition to one of the most incompetent or corrupt renovations of a building in the history of construction. Put another way, Too Late is a total loser, and our country is paying the price. President Donald Trump wants Jerome Powell out, and he wants Jerome Powell to quit. And Jerome Powell, for whatever reason, is digging in. He's not going anywhere. He's continuing to oversee this billion-dollar renovation, and he's refusing to lower the interest rates, which would be an amazing investment in the United States of America. In our real estate, people would be able to borrow money at a much more palatable rate, and it would create businesses. It would create business opportunity. It would create a building bonanza. There's all kinds of amazing things that happens when the Fed drops the rate, but Jerome Powell refuses to do so. The last time he did drop the rate was, of course, right before the election in an effort to help Democrats win by boosting the economy. It failed miserably, and Donald Trump returned to power. And then finally, as we get ready for school to start, and some schools already starting this week and next, some schools already having their orientation, Secretary of Education Linda McMahon was talking about the continued efforts to fight wokeness and DEI in some of our high-ranking Ivy League institutions.
Well, in the settlement, it does agree to protect students on campus and to make sure they are still cracking down on anti-Semitism. They also have agreed, to recognize women as women and men as men, and not to allow men in women's sports, and women can have private dressing facilities, etc. And they've also agreed to get rid of the DEI and in their hiring practices to make sure that it's based on merit, and promotions and admissions are based on merit and not on other ideologies.
Yeah, so they're looking to equalize the education system, which is something I think we all can get behind. We need merit-based education. We need to get rid of DEI. We need to recognize that men are men and women are women, and they should not be competing against each other. And all of this is happening while at the same time, Linda McMahon is still simultaneously dismantling her own Department of Education. Very interesting times, and it's going to be a very interesting school year as we head into August, this being the last day of July. Listen, there's a lot more that we have to talk about. There's a lot more that we have to cover, and we do all of that in our second daily podcast, Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. If you would like to download Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, all you have to do is go to markkaye.com. markkaye.com. You can click there, get your podcast on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you like to listen. Go to markkaye.com for our second daily podcast, Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. Download, listen, and enjoy.